Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be an overview of One Book July because it is August, hurrah! Not that you'd know in the UK because the weather is awful, but August means the end of One Book July and the end of this little project, so I thought it would be fun to kind of do a bit of a summary around how it worked, or if it worked, what kind of it helped me learn, whether I'm still in it, you know, all that good stuff. And if you are new to my channel or new to my little One Book July series, I will leave links in the description and in the cards for kind of my original video around why I decided to do One Book July, the setup, everything like that. I did even create a little playlist for it so you can literally just watch all the One Book July videos in one go. So to kick off with, I won't kind of go too much into the setup details, which is why I do recommend kind of watching that video if you're new to my setup. I'll just probably mention a few bits and pieces as I go that's kind of relevant in terms of how it worked for me. So what I thought would be probably a good idea would be to kind of go through the sections kind of in order and talk about kind of whether they worked, whether they didn't work, and kind of what they've helped me learn about kind of planning going forward. Because the big thing for me was figuring out what I wanted out of my planners. You know, I had quite a few on the go. I was kind of losing my way a bit, and 2024 planners are looming, so the Hobonichi previews have already started. They go on sale on the 1st September. Loads of smaller brands have already released their 2024 planners for pre-order, which is crazy to me, but yeah, it did mean that I felt under pressure to kind of work out what I was doing for 2024. So to begin with, the future log. So this isn't something that I've necessarily had in a planner before because it's very much to me a bullet journal kind of part. I normally just have, you know, all my months set up in advance, and that effectively becomes my future log. This allowed me to have all of my months in a very small area, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed not having to flick through loads of pages. It was very quick to kind of, you know, find the month. The bit for me was I didn't like the list, so I didn't like the fact that it wasn't in order. So, you know, here I've got an appointment on the 15th after appointments, or, you know, plans on the 21st or 26th. It didn't flow very well for me. You know, having this and having it, you know, marked off was great to kind of quickly see at a glance if something was going on, but I then still had to kind of go through and look at this. I do prefer the traditional monthly kind of layout to you know, to see what plans I've got going on. So while it worked kind of in this way, and, you know, worked for One Book July, and I could get on with it, longer term I know I need all the months. Which, speaking of all the months, so my monthly layout, in general, it did work. So one of the things I really wanted was to have places for weekly tasks, because one thing that I did have in my weeks was I had space to write the tasks for the month, you know, in, but I didn't have it kind of dated. So I had to kind of look at these lists, look at the list, and, you know, either put a date on it, which I never did, or just remember kind of when it needed to happen. So a big thing for me with this layout was having these tasks. This has been a resounding success. This will get taken into my next setup, whether it be in a bullet journal or a TN or the weeks. I will have space for tasks, because when I'm setting up my week, I can just flick to the monthly spread, write in my events, and then write in any corresponding tasks that need to be done that week. I then still have space for random monthly tasks that don't necessarily need to be done, you know, on a certain date. They're just little reminders that I need to do this month. What didn't work was drawing out. Absolutely hated it. I knew going in that it's not something that I've been a big fan of in the past, and I was giving it a go for this, and, you know, I kept the layout pretty simple to, you know, to account for that, but I still didn't enjoy doing it. And the thought of having to set up, you know, because my future log doesn't work for me, I would need to set up all the months in advance, and I would absolutely hate doing that. So yeah, a bit of a tale of two halves. So what I have learned is that, yes, this kind of monthly layout and the way I can add in the tasks and things like that 100% works, but I need it pre-printed. So for next year, definitely I will need some sort of pre-printed monthly planner to use. Another bit just on this is, because of the small amount of space, there's only 4 lines per day, it did allow me to really think about what was important in my monthly view. So previously I have put in things like, you know, bill payment dates, even if they're direct debit, just for, you know, somewhere to see them and just to have them, but I never used it. I didn't need it. The only thing I really need to know is when my payday is. So this has helped me kind of realize that actually these just need to be 100% functional. They only need to have exactly what, you know, my plans are and what I actually need to refer to. So it has been really helpful in that sense to, you know, so that I don't go overboard. So this has worked out pretty well for me. The layout is fine, splitting up content and YouTube, really liked that. Having the space for any idea, you know, this is the YouTube videos that I need to film, this is Instagram pictures, ideas for content that I need to kind of film and things like that. Worked out really well. The big learn for me with this little project was I don't need it in this book. This is my everyday carry. It's taking up valuable space that, you know, isn't needed on me at all times. Anything that needs to be done that pertains to these things goes in the weekly and daily pages anyway. So yeah, this just confirmed for me having it how I did have it in my cousin monthly view is the right thing to do. Whether I get a cousin next year or not, you know, it doesn't really matter. It just needs to go in any kind of monthly layout that there isn't anything else in, because, you know, if you think about the weeks, the boxes aren't huge and I would quite like to keep it separate still. So yeah, one thing kind of talking around monthly that I haven't really mentioned is the habit tracker. So if you have seen my weeks before, you will have seen that I have kept habit trackers in my monthly view, and sometimes I've kept kind of just my weekly habits, sometimes I've kept my daily habits. It's been a bit kind of slapdash. Having everything from daily, weekly and monthly in here in one place to refer to every day, so I just have one page I have to flick to at the end of every day to, you know, fill this out, has worked beautifully. I've absolutely loved this. This has been a revelation in terms of my planning. This is a notepad that is currently in the shop that I created earlier this year. I had it out kind of on the desk at one point. I liked having it out there as a reminder, but having it in here, particularly in my EDC, so actually when I'm at work I can just sit and update it for the day before, for example. Perfect. Love this. 100%. So this is definitely something that will be coming with me in my next setup and whatever I decide to do with it. Next we are on to the weeklies. So I kept these simple on purpose, so, you know, although there's a little bit of drawing, it's basically the same amount of drawing that I did in my weeks. So it's just a case of separating out my plans, or rather my categories. So what I had is a kind of couple of lines to you know, just mark out life, shop and content, and that's all I replicated here. But because I had space for 4 columns, it meant I could split out life in events and tasks. I need to pre-plan. I can't just be a bullet journaler who only does daily planning. I need to sit on a Sunday evening and get everything out of my brain in terms of, you know, what's going on. The issue, well, there's 2 issues with the daily log really, with the weekly layout, is there's not a lot of space. So because this had to be my everyday carry and my purse, I couldn't have it being, you know, a B6 or an A5 size. Far too big to throw in, you know, some of my small handbags. So it needed to be A6. This has then meant that each day I've only got space for 3 tasks. So on a Monday, for example, which is my non-working day and the day that I do all my shop stuff and all my YouTube, pre-planning 3 tasks isn't ideal. It's nowhere near enough. And ditto, you know, for the weekends when I do a lot more shop and content stuff, it's just not enough. So then I found that, you know, some weeks I was writing the tasks in here, which isn't what it's for. So what this space is supposed to be for is for kind of general weekly tasks, not, you know, specific tasks that I ideally do want to do on a day. So this, for example, you know, the samplers, actually I had a day in mind for that, but because I didn't have enough space on one of the 2 days that I was planning on doing it, it got written up there. Another thing that I didn't like, which actually was probably quite pronounced here, so this was the week that I decided to use a fountain pen, because I really miss my fountain pens. Like, this pen is fine, but my writing isn't particularly neat in it, but I love having all the colours. But one week I decided to go back to my fountain pen. This is my Calico Sport with a lovely green diamine ink in it. And yeah, loved it. I much prefer my handwriting in it. It's a joy to use. But even though I have a blotting paper that I would use, because I was flicking back and forth between my weekly and my daily, because I'd have some tasks written in the weekly and some tasks written in the daily, I was then kind of smudging the paper, or rather smudging the ink, even with the blotting paper, which, if you've seen my videos before, you'll know that's a common complaint of mine. I am just not good with ink, it seems. And I think even now I've just managed to smudge that because I've got hand cream on. Brilliant. So yeah, having the weekly and having tasks written on it that I need to refer to during my days, it's not convenient. There's a lot of flicking around on a daily basis, which at first I didn't mind, and then kind of as the month went on, I really started to dislike. So because I didn't like the flicking back and forth, what I did then start doing towards the end was rewriting out some of the tasks. So if it was a task to be done that day, I would then write it out again on the daily, which is fine. It didn't take very long. I know some people don't like repetition, but what kind of then bugged me was I had it already in here. You know, writing things out if it's in another planner and I'm trying to, you know, move it into something that's more portable, for example, that's fine. Rewriting something that's already in the planner seems a little silly. So yeah, it kind of was a success / wasn't a success in terms of the weekly. What was a massive success though was the dailies. These absolutely worked brilliantly. It's, you know, the traditional method, I would say, of bullet journaling, just, you know, jotting stuff down as it goes, or as it comes up, making notes of things that happened, you know, ideas, things like that, just capturing everything. Brilliant. I did, as I mentioned in my check-in video, kind of initially get annoyed with kind of all the blank space because some of my notes, you know, were, you know, ending up as a short list. But using a few stickers in here, A, pretties it up, and B, uses them up, because I do have way too many stickers that I do need to start using. But since I made that change, absolutely love it. If I was more artistic, I'd draw like Lindsay Scribbles does. I'm not, I'm trying to be, but for the time being, the stickers work really well. So the dailies, I absolutely love. And that's kind of a bit of a whistle-stop tour of kind of the setup and kind of the learnings that I had in terms of, you know, what works for me, what I need out of a planner, what can be binned off, and, you know, what can't be in one book. I knew I was never gonna, you know, do this, and realised that one book absolutely works for me. I was always going to need separation. I'm always going to need somewhere for my scrapbooking and things like that. And this has just helped me kind of really realise, well, what does need to be separate, and what do I need to carry with me? Because one of the things that I absolutely loved about this is the fact that actually I did have my plans on me. Before, when I had my Passport TN, I only had my monthly plans with me just so I could, you know, book in appointments and things like that on the go. But in terms of my daily to-dos or anything like that, I didn't have them on me. They were sat on my desk in my weeks. With the daily logs in here, I have them on me. So if something comes into my head, I can just write it down. Or if at lunchtime I can, you know, knock a few bits off because they're, you know, Instagram related things, I can do that and mark it off and not have to wait until I get home. So I've had a lot of learnings from doing this, and I 100% recommend, if you are in a bit of a, you know, tiz around your planning setup and, you know, what works for you, and maybe you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with too many planners, 100% give this a try. It doesn't have to be a bullet journal, it can just be any of the planners that you currently use, but 100% give it a whirl. You will probably find out a lot in terms of what really is important to you, because one of the things that we're really good at in the planning community is going a bit nuts over the next planning craze, and suddenly you're like, yes, I absolutely need this B6 planner. You don't. You may, but you don't. But that's how a lot of us end up with 10 million planners, bits of information written everywhere, and then not feeling very organised. So that's my little, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That is my little rant about kind of One Book July and why it's absolutely worth doing. I think now is probably a good time to talk about kind of what I'm doing now for planning, now that it's the 1st of August. So this is my spread for this week. This is my new condensed weekly spread and it goes straight into my dailies. So all I have in here are events and a little bit of spare space, which I'm currently thinking about how I'd use it. I don't particularly like the layout of this. I've just kind of copied what my original layout was. So this will probably, evolve over time. But the idea is all I've got with me for my weekly spread is the things that I need to know on the go, which is my events. As you can see, I'm really busy this week. So yeah, it's not even wasting pages, but it's not, I'm not filling this up with loads of stuff that I don't need with me on the go. Where the rest of this information is in my weeks. So here I've basically gone back to my old week's layout. So life, Etsy shop, content, all goes in here, all pre-planned on a Sunday evening. And then the difference is here, I've just done more kind of overall pre-planning. So this is where, my waiting on list goes. This is where my general weekly task goes. I've added in a little brain dump section for next week. So what will probably happen is if I think of something on the go that needs to be done next week, I'll write it in. And then at the end of the day, when I do a bit of a reconciliation, it'll get written on here. I've then just left this blank because I do quite miss doing this, which is just a bit of journaling that I did kind of towards the start of the year, just a few, bits about what happened that day. Yeah, that's kind of the only thing that will get written on kind of in day, as this is, well, other than this next week bit, the rest of it is basically just a pre-planning area. So I can just sit on a Sunday evening, plan out my week, be organised, know what's going on, and then at the end of each day, I will refer to this because this gets left open on my desk. I'll refer to this and basically start the daily with any tasks from the weeks. So the first thing I'll write in is anything that's written on the corresponding day. And then I'll just go about my day as normal, and at the end of the day, there'll just be a quick reconciliation of, is there anything, that I need to add into here? So did I place another order? Did I have any notes for next week? And other than that, it's just, okay, move on to the next day, move all of these into here. I'll see how that goes. I think this is a really good compromise. I am hoping it will allow me to kind of set up my week in a way that I feel like I've got everything onto paper, but then run my days in this in a way that was working really well for me throughout July. In terms of the notebook itself, I will use up this notebook, so 120 pages, probably in the next 6-7 weeks this will be done. I'll then probably go back to my Passport TM, because although I liked this and I liked the space, and this did work to an extent as a purse, the storage I don't think works long term. So you've got a pocket at the back, and I've added in a plastic pocket at the front for like my bank card and my ID. I do miss all the different pockets and the way that I can organise in my TN. In here I have, this, I have more, so I have a lot of space for storing, purse related or purse adjacent items that I don't have in here, but it's not detrimental enough that I'm going to ditch this notebook. That would feel incredibly wasteful, so I do want to fill it up, and I think it'll be quite nice to have, a full bullet journal to flick back through. And I think that's kind of it in terms of the bullet journal. I obviously have a couple of months left of the year, well, 5 months left of the year to kind of try that out, so I'm going to finish off this notepad, this notebook. I'm going to move my Passport TN over. I'm obviously still going to continue with my cousin and finish out the year, but I think if everything else works well, I think the natural moving my scrapbooking into the standard TN will work really well. And yeah, that's kind of it. This has been probably a lot longer than I expected it to, so apologies, but thank you if you are still here at the end. Yeah, if you do have any questions about One Book July or anything around my setup, please drop me a note in the comments. And if there's anything that you have seen that I haven't kind of mentioned where it's come from or anything like that, please check the description because all the links are usually in there. And if you did like this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye!